Welcome back to Around the SEC with Jeff Beecham and Corey Burton. I am the host, Stephen Willis, here to break down all the games that happened last week and kind of lead you into this weekend's games. I want to say before we get started, you can follow us on Twitter at the Stephen Willis or at Old Positively. Corey, what's yours?
Mine is at Believe in Dogs is my podcast one, and at Coach Burton 36 is my personal Twitter.
And Jeb Beecham, of course, is at Stolen Grin. Also, you can follow us on Facebook or like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Palmcast, or join our Facebook group, Positively Ole Miss. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Positively Ole Miss, hit the bell for notifications. And, of course, you can follow us on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss, all one word. Basically, the way we do this is we are already where you are. So we're not going to ask you to go to a second location, and we are not going to extort you for money. So thank you very much for joining us. And we've got, a historic, really, episode. We're going to talk a little bit about Arkansas's win last week. Tennessee has the longest active winning streak in the SEC. That's going to last at least for, another day or two. And Georgia rebounds from the ugly showing from Arkansas in week one to just absolutely dominate Auburn. How you doing, guys? What's up this evening?
Well, just another week in the SEC, another interesting week. I coach with two big Tennessee superfans, so it's been a fun week as far as trolling those two guys. So I'm ready for this to come on and get here.
It's definitely weeks like this that I miss being in an office around a lot of people, because I had some good Georgia fans that was fun to work with, and this was always a fun week with them. And it's kind of sad being at home alone and not being able to share that with all this COVID mess going on. By the way, I hope I don't lose you. I seem to be having a little bit of audio issues. I've had some cutting in and out, so if I lose you, I apologize, but we'll be back on as fast as possible.
Yes. If you get cut off, just rejoin the meeting and let me know, and I'll admit you.
Absolutely.
So, well, let's jump right into it. Arkansas's big win over Mississippi State, 21-14. The defense called nothing but three-man fronts, eight-man coverages the whole game, and just made it to where Mike Leach was forced to drive the ball down the field, and KJ Costello couldn't do it.
No, he could not. I mean, what they did a good job of doing, Steve, is Arkansas really diagnosed what Mississippi State was going to do, really what Leach was going to do. They sat back in zone, they brought pressure, and then they forced KJ Costello to settle for the short throws, and occasionally quarterbacks and offensive coordinators get impatient, and they took some shots, and he didn't connect. So
he also
thought that air raid offense would come back down to earth, but I was shocked that it happened so quickly and against Arkansas.
Yeah, KJ Costello 2 pick sixes in back-to-back weeks, so that's not a good streak to have at the moment. Speaking of streaks, though, Tennessee has the longest winning streak in the SEC. They beat Missouri over the weekend. It was a really nice performance by the Vols. I really, really like Eric Gray. If they had just another quarterback than Jarrett Garantano, they could be really special.
Yeah, I was very surprised by that, and just how well they handled Missouri, because it's been a while since Tennessee's had a really good game against another SEC opponent where they just look solid throughout. And you're right. I love Eric Gray. I think Ty Chandler's playing really well this season too. The offensive line is with Cade Mays starting this week, really, really looks very good. So all in all, it was great. Jarrett Garantano, I'm still not a fan of. He did in this game, though, managed the game very well, played solid. If he could do that all the time, he'd be great. Or he'd be good enough. I just know his game will come back down just like Mississippi State this week. And I fear it'll be against Georgia, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy defense. I mean, they I think outside of 3 plays the entire season, actually outside of 3 plays in the first week, Arkansas didn't cross the 50. And then Auburn was on their heels all night long. Last week, they had trouble moving the ball. They had trouble getting any sort of consistent drives going. I think they hit a few big plays. They moved the ball well at times, but it was one of those like they just couldn't string together a bunch of good plays to get in the end zone, and a lot of it was due to the fact that they were getting immense pressure on Bo Nix. So Tennessee, to neutralize that, is going to have to be able to chew up yards on first down. They're going to have to be able to win early in the early downs and set themselves up in third and manageable. That way they can use play action RPOs, and they have the whole playbook at their disposal. They get in third and long too much, it's a wrap.
And, of course, Georgia dominated Auburn over the weekend. And Stetson Bennett, which we thought JT Daniels would eventually make an appearance, but Stetson Bennett just kind of is there to take the snaps and looks like he's going to be the quarterback, at least starting this weekend. It was a nice win for the Dogs.
It really was, Steve. I mean, Stetson came in and, I don't know that a whole lot of people outside of the Georgia program itself expected Stetson to do much against such a talented front seven. Auburn loses their quarterback on their defense, Smoke Monday, to a egregious, really bad targeting call. And that kind of affected their defense. I don't feel like they were able to get lined up correctly. I just don't feel like they had the same swagger without him in the game. And Stetson Bennett really showed a lot of poise, showed a lot of elusiveness, was able to move around in the pocket and buy himself some time. He was able to make good throws on the run, and he was able just to take command of the offense. I think he was a little bit more than a game manager, not a game changer at quarterback, but I think a little more than just a guy that's not going to screw it up for you. I think he makes some plays there, and until proven otherwise, man, I think he continues to get the shot, and he's continuing to impress and getting better each and every week. So that was one way Georgia rebounded. But I think what helped, Steve, is that Georgia was able to run the ball. They were able to get push, and they were able to run early. They get 7 yards on the very first play from scrimmage. That kind of set the tone for the entire night. This offensive line did a tremendous job. My partner in crime, Isreal Troupe, and you'll hear from him later. One of the biggest keys to winning that game was putting Trey Hill at center, because Trey Hill is able to make all the calls for the line. He's able to get things sorted out, get pressure sorted out, and they just became very familiar with that opponent, and it showed.
Well, now, was the situation where Georgia made that big of a jump on offense, or Auburn is just not what we thought they were defensively?
I think it's a little bit of both, Steve. I think – anytime you go from game 1 to game 2, you're going to see a significant jump in production. I mean, just look at Guarantano as an example. Just look at Arkansas as an example. Look at the two Kyles even at Florida. I mean, you saw a lot of offenses drastically improve from week 1 to week 2. So there's going to be a little bit of that. Also, I think Auburn's defense underwhelmed. They're extremely talented. And they usually play a lot better than they played Saturday night. So it's just a combination of both. Georgia had a really good game plan against them, and Georgia's offensive line just said, you know what, screw it, we're going to take over the game, and they did.
All right, segment 1 in the books, Around the SEC. Me and the gang will be back right after these breaks.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese. We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen.
As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop. Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
Welcome back around the SEC. Stephen Willis with Corey Burton and Jeb Beecham. Thanks, of course, for joining us. We're going to get into this week's preview portion of the broadcast, I guess you can call it. The game of the week this week is obviously Georgia versus Tennessee. And, you know, we have Isreal Troupe coming up in a little bit to talk in depth about it. But going into this, what do you guys expect? And we'll start with Jeb.
Well, while I talked about Jerry Garantano and being steady on offense, I really do like Tennessee's run game, their offensive line. If he can be steady again, I feel like the offense can do some damage. The problem is just looking at the Georgia game from last week, their defense is just so much better than Tennessee's right now. I think Tennessee's got some great playmakers in defense at different positions, but just all around, and especially depth-wise, with Georgia, just the way they play defense, I don't see Tennessee scoring a lot. I think it'll be a close game for a while, but this will be one of those games where Georgia will kind of pull away in the end is what I'm expecting. Now, just as a fan, I hope we see Tennessee play really well. Maybe Garantano will even take another step and play as a down-the-field passer, and we can score some points, but we'll see.
My theory on this one is Tennessee is very much an old school pro style offense, and Kirby's defense kind of eats them for breakfast.
They really do.
So unless there's something special that Tennessee has planned, Tennessee's offensive system is kind of designed for Georgia to be very successful.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the trajectory of the Tennessee program, they are where Georgia was 2 years ago as far as program development. Now, Georgia had a few things go in their favor. They had a couple of once-in-a-generation type running backs and a whole bunch of senior leadership that Tennessee doesn't have that led them to a national championship appearance. However, they're built very similarly up front. They're built in the way that they have good running backs and a strong running game. They're built really well on defense, where they're starting to build playmakers in each level of the defense. I think Henry Toto is arguably the best linebacker in the conference, maybe even in the country. If you look at it, he'll be a Sunday player. So they're starting, and they've built it very slow, and they're starting to develop a lot of talent over there, and they're starting to become a very, very dangerous team. Maybe they're just not quite there yet depth-wise, but they're getting a lot of guys, a lot of different experience, and you're going to see that kind of play out not only next year, but even as this season starts to unfold. Now, for Tennessee, if they were getting Georgia in, say, 3 weeks, we might be talking about a totally different ballgame where Tennessee would be, I think, on par with a lot of the upper echelon teams of the conference. But as of right now, I just don't see that because I think the depth up front, you have Cade Mays, who was eligible last week, but still you wonder, is he in game shape? What has he been doing since before he got cleared? What kind of reps did he get before he got cleared? Because they're not going to waste reps on him in practice if he's not clear yet. So that's something that's a concern. Yes, he looked great against Missouri, but Missouri's not Georgia, and Georgia has a lot of speed and a lot of power on their defense, especially in the front seven. You've got elite playmakers all throughout that front seven. Monty Rice is a great run-stuffing linebacker. You have Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker that can run side to side on you if you want to try to run outside. You have Nolan Smith, who's a great pass rusher, as well as somebody who can get back into coverage. Azeez Ojulari, who makes it a nightmare in the pass rush. Then you have Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter on the interior that make it really difficult to run in the cylinder. So there's a lot of talent on Georgia's side, and that's not a knock on Tennessee. I just think they're going to struggle like a lot of teams are against this defense.
If you look at Tennessee's offensive line, that is a strength for them. If anybody is going to have a modicum of success against this Georgia defense, it's that group of 5 stars. But I just do not like the pro-style setup of Jim Chaney at Tennessee going against Kirby's defense. I just can't get over that.
You can't get past that, and it just doesn't set up well for Tennessee in that regard. And this will be the best offensive line Georgia has faced and will face all year long.
No, and I have to agree. I think the problem with Tennessee on their defense, like you said, they've got some good playmakers, including Henry To'oTo'o, but I don't think they have the best pass rush right now. And Georgia's offensive line is also very good. I know y'all lost the pieces to the NFL, but that depth it's just too much, I think, to overcome. So I don't see our defense being able to stop Georgia's offense nearly as well as their defense will stop our offense.
All right. Well, we caught up. My partner in crime, we did our early preview. We talked a little bit briefly about the Georgia-Tennessee matchup. It's Isreal Troupe, former Georgia receiver, and myself on the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast. We talked a little bit briefly about the matchup. So enjoy. This league is going to be really fun here in the coming years. I think we've got the right mix of coaches now, and I think we got the right mix of parity. I think a lot of people can do a lot of different things, so it'll be a fun league to watch, and it'll be a fun league to watch down the stretch. So, 2:30 CBS on Saturday. The Vols visit Athens to take on Georgia, both 2-0. Tennessee ranked for the first time in a while. They come in ranked 14th. Garantano, they seem to be settled on him now. He was 33 of 54 for 449 and 2 touchdowns on the season. They're averaging 33 points per game. Georgia's averaging 32. But Georgia's giving up 8, and Tennessee's giving up almost 20. Well, we'll call it 20. It's 19.5 points per game, both over 400 in total yards, and Georgia has the significant advantage in yards allowed. So if you tailor the tape, you would think, okay, well, this Tennessee offense, something's got to give here. But Georgia's defense is elite. We know that. But, you watch our boy Brandon Boykin is on Thinking Out Loud on the SEC Network, so congrats to him on that. But they're saying that Tennessee still has a slight edge in the quarterback department. What do you say to that?
I think they do in the sense that They got the same coordinator coming back, and Garantano was there last year, so he kind of understands a little bit better this year. I think that's the only edge they have as far as that goes. But that game again is going to come to who can control the line of scrimmage, who can throw the ball when they need to, and who can run the ball when they need to. So Coach Chaney is going to have them coached up, and he's going to be ready to go. They gave us a scare in the first half last year. We couldn't quite figure it out. They did a lot of RPO stuff, and once Kirby and the defensive staff, got everything going, and it was all downhill from there. So I think you stop the RPO defensively, and if you can move the ball offensively, I think it's going to be another Georgia victory. Well, I know it'll be another Georgia victory.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I think what's being lost in all this is that Stetson Bennett actually got all the reps with the twos last year. So, he got a lot of reps in practice. He got a lot of reps against an elite defense. So, you can't discount that. But then again, starting experience and game experience is, I guess you could say that's a little bit more. But Tennessee is significantly better up front with Cade Mays being ruled eligible. That's going to be a factor. But, one of the strengths that Tennessee has and one of the strengths that Georgia's defense has, they don't match up very well with that. And I think it's going to be something that you're going to see that's going to be exploited. I think it's going to be kind of like what people were saying about Auburn coming in, that I think it's going to, they carry a lot of promise. They've played really well on the offensive side of the ball, but I just don't think, until this defense proves me otherwise, I don't think you can say that any offense is going to do anything against this defense until they do. And so I think they're going to have tough sledding in the run game because we are so fast and so powerful up front that it's going to be real difficult. They're going to have to get creative, and they're going to have to try and get creative with RPOs, which they did in the first half, but you figure that out, and so you got to have an answer for that. Taking some shots downfield, maybe trying to stretch our defense vertically. Get it, hopefully take advantage. We're a very aggressive team, and with aggressive teams come penalties. So, you have to capitalize on penalty yardage, things like that. And then I think, special teams, you got to steal a possession. I think, it goes back to special teams. That's going to be the key to every game in this league is special teams. Who can win special teams? Whoever wins special teams has got the significant advantage. And I think Georgia is doing everything they can to win special teams each and every week. I think they have won special teams each week. And so I think as long as they make plays there, they will be fine.
Yes.
I think if Tennessee
and like I said, we're not giving Coach Cochran enough credit. I'm talking about he is doing a phenomenal job with that special teams unit. The way that we're covering punts, the way that we're getting punt return yardage, we haven't had that in a long time at Georgia. So the way that he's doing everything, there's been no penalties as far as substitutions. Everybody knows where they're supposed to be. A couple of those penalties Saturday was just Auburn came out something we hadn't seen, something we hadn't practiced. So, obviously, that kind of gave us a couple penalties there. But other than that, I mean, just everything he's done, he's putting the guys in places to where they can succeed, and you see it, and they're excited about it. You got kids excited about playing on special teams, and it is very fun to watch. And we got to give that man his credit. He has done a great job of getting his first year on the job, and he has done a phenomenal job of having Georgia special teams as good, if not better than they were when Coach Fabris was there when I was up there. So I think kudos to him, and I think, like you said, who can win in special teams is going to win. Is going to get us a ball game. And it may become sooner or later, but as long as we're solid in special teams, I think we're going to be just fine.
No doubt. And somebody we have to contest with on the defensive side of the ball is Henry Toto. I think I pronounced that right. Probably, outside of Nick Bolton, probably the best linebacker in the entire conference. You talk about a guy that's a game changer on that side of the ball. He kind of makes that Vol defense go, and I think it's something that we have to contend with.
Yes, most, and they hadn't shown anything that can stop. After watching our receivers last week, as long as we get on the same page as far as a couple throws here and there, I hadn't seen anybody that can stop us. I think if that game comes to they control the ball in the trenches and we do, I think it's going to be who can throw the ball, who can't stop the forward passes, what that ball game is going to come down to, and I think we have the advantage in that. Yeah,
and I think it's one of those things where our offense really hasn't even come close to reaching peak performance. So that's what's scary. We have these big plays, and we're probably right now still operating at about 30%. And and I think just cleaning up the penalties from a week ago made a world of difference.
Most definitely. And watching, we gave him a little flack, but watching Landers, I think Landers fixed that one little hiccup that he had. We're receivers, so we're all guilty of it. Coach calls a play, you're like, that ball's not coming to me. So you kind of give the DB something, and next thing you know, the ball's in there. You're like, oh crap. By then it's too late. So I think he fixes that. And we had a fade throw to another freshman guy the other night, and he just misses it and stuff like that. So once we clean that stuff up, we're going to be dangerous. We can be balanced and make plays out wide.
No doubt. And you said it perfectly there. It's a 13-point spread. I'll let you know on Friday how I feel about that 13-point spread. So I'll have some time to think about it. We'll make our picks, and I'm looking for Israel. If you know a Tennessee guy, would love to have a guest on to really dive into volunteer football. So, I think it's going to be, again, we said it and we said it and we said it, and we know what the differences are, and we know what the game changers are. So special teams controlling the line of scrimmage and really just being able to take advantage of the passing game, I think, is going to be the key. So, all right, man, that was Isreal Troupe, man. He brings the heat each and every episode that we do. He's a brand new co-host, just joined on officially with me last week. He was a recurring guest before that. Somebody I reached out to on Twitter. He's a friend of a friend. Did not know him, had never met him before. We're both coaches. He coaches down in Valdosta at Valwood High School, which is a private school down there. And so we kind of got connected and we had good chemistry. So you can catch us on the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast anywhere that you find your podcast. So after you get done listening to this episode, go catch that full interview there. We did a show with the host of the J-Boy Show, Jake Crane, a week ago. Make sure you get caught up and make sure you like, subscribe, and rate that show as well as this one. So, Steve, I think there's another matchup that it could be interesting, but I think it's going to be a bloodbath because and that's the Florida Gators invading Kyle Field. I just don't think that Texas A&M has the answer for the Kyles.
Yeah. The closest thing to free money that's out there right now is betting against Texas A&M. It's happened in week 1 easily. It happened in week 2 easily, and that was with Vanderbilt on the schedule. And I like the Kyles and the Florida offense against this defense, but I think Todd Grantham, he's another person that is just going to eat up a pro-style attack with what he wants to do. He wants to play in a 15-yard box and aggressively send the safeties down. That plays right into the favor of stopping Texas A&M. So this game could get out of hand, and it could get out of hand in a hurry.
I just don't think they're well coached. I think Jimbo is just – I don't know what's going on with him, man. He just kind of like – ever since some of that, hit the fan at Florida State, he hadn't been the same. Texas A&M, I felt like has wasted money getting him. $75 million. You could have done better than Jimbo. They're
with
getting
no
what
buyout.
They deserve in this scenario with no buyout. So this is going to be interesting. So Florida's going to run all over them. It's going to be ugly. I would be surprised if A&M kept it within three scores, to be honest with you. Florida's just way too good. They're going to overwhelm them, I think. I mean, I haven't found anybody that can cover Kyle Pitts yet. And it's going to be hard pressed to find somebody that's going to cover Kyle Pitts. Maybe Derek Stingley. He'd cover anybody. And they do play. Florida and LSU do play, so you'll see that maybe. Which is kind of odd that you're going to put your best corner on a tight end, but I mean, you got to figure something out, right? But I just don't think. I mean, Florida not really much of a run game. Don't really need it. Hasn't really needed it so far. So their defense is just littered with talent. Todd Grantham. Finally, I think he's got the personnel organized the way he wants it. And he's going to force his will on you. And Florida's just a dangerous team right now.
Yeah, and just as a fan's perspective, from the outside looking in, not knowing much about what goes on behind the scenes, I've been kind of curious with Texas A&M because they do have a lot of talent. They just seem so disorganized right now. And I guess what you're saying with Jimbo Fisher is probably the reason. I don't know what it is that's caused it. I think they're a better team than they've played so far, but I would be surprised if they pull it together for Florida this week. Well, honestly, I don't think it's going to get a real test until Georgia, which is not for another about 4 weeks for them. So we'll see if LSU can slow them down. I think they're first. But
Georgia's getting a real test each and every week in the first 5. So got Bama next week. So it's even more fun.
Yeah, can't wait for that game of the week. Anyway, that's it. We're through with segment 2 on Around the SEC. We're going to come back and get the rest of the SEC games shortly. Stick around.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese. We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen.
As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop. Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
Around the SEC, I'm your host, Stephen Willis, along with Jeb Beecham and Corey Burton. Thank you very much for joining us. Mississippi State, we're going to hit our rapid fire here real quick. Mississippi State is going up to Kentucky. Kentucky is licking its wounds after the kicker just somehow blew a game against Ole Miss. And Ole Miss had no business winning that game, but they did. They need to come back off of that. Mike Leach and the Air Raids coming to town, which started in Kentucky, strangely enough. It's going to be a fun game, but I think it's going to look a little different than last week.
Yeah, it will. I think for Kentucky, they need to, whatever that team was in the first half last week is the team that needs to show up again and stay there. Because I think Kentucky did a great job last week in the first half, controlling the clock, controlling the tempo, and controlling the pace of the game. They made Ole Miss play their game, and that got them up significantly. I think it was 35-14 at one point, Steve?
28-14.
28-14 at one point. And, Kentucky was having their way. Terry Wilson was he paced the running game, maybe not with yards, but definitely with the amount of carries. He was the leading carrier with 22. I think Rodriguez outpaced him with yards, but I think he was just more efficient with a couple of his carries. So if Kentucky control this game and keep Costello off the field, they will win. If they allow Mississippi State, much like what they did with Ole Miss, if they allow them to get in that shootout type of tempo, it's going to be ugly. And that's what happened with Kentucky. That's why they opened the door for Ole Miss. And then Ole Miss kicked it right in, and Kentucky led them. And they can't do that. They have to control the tempo of the game, the entire game. They're not good enough. They're not built to be able to get in a shootout. They're built to be able to control the ball. They're still explosive, but they're built to have to be able to control the line of scrimmage and really funnel everything through the run game.
I'm very curious in this game which team will be more desperate for a win. Mississippi State, beat LSU, but then got beat by Arkansas. And Kentucky has already lost a couple and ran for over 400 yards in that game against Ole Miss. Already got beat by one offensive guru in Mississippi. I doubt they want to get beat by both of them. So it should be very interesting to watch.
Yeah,
which team wants it more?
Yeah, something to keep in mind in this game. If Kentucky loses this game, they are staring 0-5 directly in the face. It's go time for them.
Mm-hmm. It really is. I mean, it's getting there.
Yeah. Ole Miss versus Bama and the battle of the two best offenses in the SEC. I think I can say that. There really are two mirror images of each other offensively. They are not mirror images of each other defensively, where Ole Miss has problems on that side of the ball. But you can honestly see the Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, Norm Chow dynamic whenever they are on the field.
It's fun. Steve, I think Ole Miss they've proven that out of the gates they can take advantage of what they do well. I thought Mingo had a great game against Kentucky. Of course, Ely and Elijah Moore, you know what you got in those two. And then, getting so many guys involved in the offense, I think is something that's a thing of beauty. And they're getting better each and every week. And we saw this. I'm not surprised by this by any stretch. We saw this with FAU. They started out kind of ugly, and Ole Miss didn't really start out ugly, but I guess from their standard, maybe they did. But I think Ole Miss is a lot of fun to watch. Obviously, Sarkisian was mentored by Lane Kiffin, so you see all the influences. But this one's going to play out very interestingly. If Ole Miss can hang, they'll give themselves a chance. But it's going to come down to strength and conditioning and things like that. And Ole Miss has got to be able to somehow find a way to control the ball and play keep away, because Bama's so explosive that Alabama will score quick, and you saw that last week with Texas A&M. At one point, it got cut down to 3, and then all of a sudden you blink and Alabama's back up by 3 scores, and you have no idea how they got there. Like, you felt like it was just over the commercial break. They scored 3 touchdowns. So that's how quickly they can do it. Ole Miss has got to somehow slow that down, ironically. both teams like to play fast, but Ole Miss has got to find a way to grind this thing down.
Yeah, and I would like to say
that's
also,
going to be fun.
Ole Miss and Bama, there's a postponement possibly for the Hurricane. No official word has come down at the time of recording, but they could play that on Sunday. They could try to play that on Saturday. It could be a little later. So with the Ole Miss Spirit is saying there's a rumor of a 6:30 start when it was originally scheduled for 5 o'clock. But stuff like that will matter. It's going to be a rain game. And, Jeb, what are you looking forward to in a rain game?
Well, normally the conventional wisdom as far as I know in a rain game is running the ball, which would seem to favor Alabama in that case. But I don't know. Ole Miss with your second quarterback, what's his name? I apologize.
John Rice Plumlee?
Yes, exactly. With Plumlee, he can run so well that it could actually still be a lot of fun watching what Lane Kiffin decides to do with his offense and maybe change it up and maybe show us something we haven't seen so far, which I think would be very interesting. It's kind of fun with Ole Miss because every week it seems like you learn a different player's name. For me, this last week it was Yeboah. Did not know who he was. Now I do. It was very good. So it could be a lot of fun. I think it'll be a great game to watch overall.
Steve, when we did boot camp the offense, we saw that he developed a really good, strong jet series where you give the jet, then you have a double option off the jet or a counter off the jet. Then you have a triple option off the jet, and there's so many things that Lane Kiffin builds off of that jet motion that I think benefits him in situations like this where you get a game where the conditions are a little sloppy. You have different dynamics that you can hit in the run game. I don't know that Alabama has all that. I think Lane Kiffin has kind of developed that throughout his time at FAU. I think he's figured out a way to get guys that are similar skill sets to Singletary and those guys, and I think he's found a way to kind of get that going, and I think that this will be a kind of wheelhouse game for John Reese Plumlee, because if it turns into a really sloppy rain fest, then John Reese Plumlee should be able to have the edge in this one, because what do we know about Mac Jones? Mac Jones and Kyle Trask are very, very similar in their games, in which they stand in the pocket, they can move around a little bit, but they stand in the pocket and pick you apart.
Of course.
That's not going to work.
Yeah, of course, all of this is going to be mute if they play Sunday, if they play late Saturday and the rain stops, because it won't hit as much after the fact. But if it's raining and windy, that is a very much an inhibitor on the passing game. The next game is LSU at Mizzou. Yes, you heard me right. They moved the game because of the hurricane. LSU up to Missouri, up to Columbia. I'm not so much looking forward to this game. Elijah Drinkwitz is trying to get off the schneid. Derek Stingley going back into playing shape. LSU's offense doesn't quite look right.
No, it doesn't. And I think they're moving this game to Missouri too, right?
Right. It's in Columbia.
Yeah. It was originally supposed to be in Baton Rouge. But, LSU they're a weird team right now. And I guess because they're just trying to figure some things out. But it's just weird because, you don't know what you have. Terrace Marshall 1 week looks like a number 4 receiver, and then the next week he looks like the number 1. They can't seem to the consistency is lacking in that regard. And I know they've only played 2 games, and it's kind of unfair to judge them, but as of right now, they just look like an inconsistent offense that is explosive one time and through one stretch of series, and then all of a sudden they look like a JV middle school team. Yes, yeah. I said JV middle school. So Miles Brennan, I just don't trust that he can get it done week in and week out, and even quarter in and quarter out. I think if things start to go south, Steve, which I know it's too early to tell. They threw up a 40 burger against Vandy. So, is it too early to tell that, or anticipate that they might go in the tank? Do they go with Max Johnson at that point, the superstar freshman? Do they take their lumps? What do you do with that? You got a highly rated 4-star quarterback from the state of Georgia, Brad Johnson's son, actually, sitting there in the wings. Do you go ahead and get him ready and get him some? This is kind of extended spring practice anyway. do you do that kind of thing, and do you throw him in there and see what he's got? I don't know. I mean, maybe if they lose a couple more ball games, maybe that's the route they go.
Yeah, this unfortunately it's kind of the same with LSU. That's what I was saying with A&M. Just from outsider looking in, it seems highly disorganized. I just think with LSU, it's not quite as big a surprise with as much as they lost with the coordinators and with all the personnel on the field that they lost. I had no idea what to expect with them coming into the season, and they've definitely taken their time trying to figure it out. But Missouri, I hate saying Missouri hasn't looked good in their first 2 games because honestly, they've played hard. They just don't have the talent right now to hang with someone like Alabama for sure. And then even with Tennessee, they couldn't do it. I know it's early, and I think their coach is his first year, so he's got a lot to build on. But I think LSU will roll in this game. It just won't be pretty.
Yes,
Arkansas this year will be pretty.
Yeah, Arkansas is on the plains to take on Auburn this weekend. The Hogs coming off a big win, their first SEC win since 2017. There's toddlers that have been born that has never seen Arkansas win an SEC game until last weekend. I don't expect them to be able to sustain success week 1 or week 2 to week 3. You got to learn how to do that, and Auburn is going to be quite pissed off.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I think a lot of it, a lot of people are looking at that performance Auburn had last week and saying they're going to be quick to say, yeah, Auburn sucks. They're terrible. They can't do it. Fire Gus Malzahn, all that good stuff. But, I think, I think a lot of it, Georgia's defense has a way of doing that to teams. They're just, they just ran into a team that put a lot of pressure on Bo Nix. Does Bo Nix have things to fix? Absolutely. Does this offense have to find its identity? You bet. But the fact of the matter is they have 3 great receivers with Seth Williams, Eli Stove, and then your boy Schwartz. And they have a run game that they're trying to get. Bigsby, I think, is going to be a good back. Maybe not yet. He's just a freshman. They're relying on a freshman to be their lead back, which is never a good idea. But I think Chad Morris is doing a pretty good job. Anytime you get a new offense, you never know week to week what they're going to have. Sometimes the matchup's not favorable, and you don't make that jump from game 1 to game 2. Sometimes you do, like in Georgia's case. You make the jump. South Carolina's case, I thought they made a good jump from week 1 to week 2 offensively. I thought Auburn took a step backwards, but a lot of it was due to the matchup against Georgia. So, I think they're going to come out, and I think this front 7 is going to be pissed off on defense. I think Bo Nix has got something to prove. I think he'll get settled in. I think they're trying to work on keeping him more still in the pocket and keeping him more poised and his eyes downfield and not looking at the rush. There's a lot of things they have to work on, and I think they'll get it done. I think they'll get back on track, and they'll be fine. They're a talented team. That's what happens in this league.
All right. The last game of the weekend, we're not going to spend much time on this one, the Hot Seat Bowl between South Carolina and Vandy, Will Muschamp and Derek Mason. Vandy's not very good. South Carolina's not very good, but they're better than Vandy, and I expect to see them win by probably 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I can agree with that. For the most part, Vandy, like I said, I love the way they play. They just don't have the depth or talent right now. And South Carolina, honestly, hasn't played terribly, at least offensively, in their first 2 games. They scored about the same both times against Tennessee and Florida. They in the 30s, low 20s or high 20s. I'm sorry. They, I think they're a good team, just not like an upper echelon SEC team, but a good team, and that's really all you got to be, I think, to beat Vanderbilt. So yeah, I think South Carolina will win that game pretty easily.
Yeah, I think South Carolina is a team that's going to improve each and every week. I think I just don't think they have anybody. I think recruiting has been really tough on them. They took a lot of losses, with graduation and guys going to the NFL last year. This is a team that, you hope would, improve before the wheels fall off. They're definitely gonna hit that fine line point where it's they're gonna hit that game where either the season is going to take off and they're going to finish strong, or the wheels are going to fall off, and Will Muschamp will be somebody's defense coordinator next year. So I think they've definitely got some things to answer. I think offensively they're starting to get some things settled. I think they're starting to get Colin Hill comfortable with the personnel. I think Shi Smith is the guy, obviously, but they need to find a run game. They need to find some things, and they've got to sort out what they're good at, what they're not good at. So I think they're going to be fine. They're going to be okay. They just got to figure it all out. And this is a great week to do so.
You're right about Shi Smith. He's a great player.
Yeah. All right, South Carolina versus Vandy in the books. We are through with segment 3. We got picks coming up next. You guys ready?
Picks, and more picks. Picks.
All right, stick around.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese. We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen.
As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop. Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
All right. My computer's acting weird, so all right. 3, 2. Welcome back. It's picks time. Week 3, basically right now Becky is in the lead at 9-5. I'm in second at 8-6, and Jeb and Corey are basically sucking hind tit at 6-8. But this is the week that we can all turn it around. Alabama -24 at Ole Miss. I'm picking Ole Miss just because I think with the wet weather, it'll be hard for Alabama to have all the explosives necessary to win that game that big.
Went with Ole Miss as well just because it's hard to count Coach Kiffin out. As we found out last week, even if they get behind, they can score in a hurry, catch up. I think they'll give them a good game.
I'm taking Bama because of strength and conditioning. I think the depth will wear on Ole Miss, and they'll pull away. Even in a sloppy, rain-fest game, I think Alabama's just stronger talent-wise right now than Ole Miss. I just don't think Ole Miss has enough bullets in the gun, so to speak, to outlast. So I'm choosing Bama until Bama proves that they can't cover a spread.
All right, and the easy money lock, stone cold, free money to everybody, pick of the day. Florida at -6.5 over Texas A&M. I'm taking the Gators.
I think we're unanimous there, right?
Yes,
they are
all across the board. LSU -14.5.
I think we need a bet on the over/under on that. That might be more debate on that game.
Yeah. LSU -14.5 at Mizzou. I'm going with Mizzou. Basically just because I think with the plans changing and the hurricane, LSU is going to be a little bit off their game, and they just have a problem offensively and defensively, and I'm not sure what it is.
It's hard to argue with that. I will say I took LSU because Missouri, just to me, every time I've seen them play now, it seems like they're right on the verge of being able to do something, but they never quite get there. And I think LSU at least knows who they are for the most part. They're not nearly as good as last year, but I think they can cover on this one. And Missouri's just, unless somehow Missouri breaks through this week, but I'm not going to bet on it.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one that I sweat the entire time until like 5 minutes to go in the game. I think it's going to be a 10-point game for a long time, and then LSU is going to get 2 quick scores, go up by 17, and that's how it's going to end. I'm not saying LSU is going to win some pretty looking ball game. It's definitely not going to be that, and I think Mizzou's going to give them fits, but I think ultimately LSU is going to come away with the win and the cover.
All right, the Hot Seat Bowl, Will Muschamp versus Derek Mason, South Carolina -13 at Vandy. I'm going with South Carolina in this game because, honestly, I believe South Carolina's offense is sneaky good and Vandy has no offense.
I took Vandy, but that's mostly because I'm behind in the picks and I'm trying to catch up. I hope that they will have a good game, maybe find a way to slow down South Carolina's offense. South Carolina really has played well, just not well enough to win. I think they'll beat Vandy, but hopefully Vandy plays more like they did in week 1 and keeps it nice and close.
Yeah, I think their freshman became a freshman. I think he turned into a pumpkin, so to speak. And things came all crashing down for the Commodores when they played a legitimate team. I think it speaks mostly to how bad A&M is and how good LSU can be in their last couple of games. I think South Carolina is a team on the rise. How fast that rise is, I don't know, but it'll be a pretty significant spike. And I think South Carolina will get their first win this weekend. I think they win, they cover, and they win comfortably against the Doors. Give me the Gamecocks, because if Becky's picking them, then I got to pick them, I guess, right?
The first road underdog, Tennessee +12.5 at UGA. I just think in this game that Kirby Smart's defense will act like a boa constrictor on Jim Chaney's offense, and Tennessee won't be able to score enough to cover that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't pick Tennessee last week, and I feel really bad about that, and I was definitely wrong. But unfortunately, I can't pick them to cover this week either, just because I feel like what we've said with other games. I think Tennessee will play a good game for a while, but in the end, Georgia will pull away with enough scoring to cover that spread.
Yeah, I think this will be a very tough game early on, but again, as much as I said with Alabama Ole Miss, I think this is a strength and conditioning game. Again, these two teams are built very similarly in the way that Ole Miss and Bama are built similarly with each other. I just think UGA is still a significant ways ahead of where Tennessee is, and that's not a knock on Tennessee again. That's just the fact that Tennessee was just so far behind with Butch Jones. We're starting to see just how ugly it really was in the Butch Jones era. So all that to say, give me the Dogs -12.5. I think they win, they cover, and I think the second half, I think they start off with a bang in the second half. Much like last year's game, it's going to be tough at first, and then they're going to pull away.
Also, game in the game, watch Tennessee's offensive line and Georgia's defensive line. The physicality and the battle up front, that'll be entertaining as much as the score is itself.
If you're a football purist, yes, watch up front both sides of the ball.
Yeah. Arkansas +14 at Auburn. I'm taking Auburn, although I worry that Auburn doesn't have enough offense to win this game by 14 points. I think that Arkansas will be still celebrating their long victory over Mississippi State.
I'm honestly not sure what to expect in this game, but Arkansas has played much better than I thought they would have to this point in the season. I've been very impressed with them. I know Auburn didn't play well last week, but they definitely have enough. Auburn is good enough to beat Arkansas, but I think Arkansas will keep it close again.
Yeah, this is going to be kind of – you're going to see Arkansas do what Kentucky should have done 2 weeks ago. I think Arkansas they have a veteran quarterback who has actually got a couple games under his belt, so it might go differently than what Kentucky did. I think physically, they've shown that they can be physical. They will play physical. They'll hit you in the mouth. They hit Mississippi State in the mouth. That's part of the reason why they wilted. And I'm talking about Mississippi State. So I think, do I think Auburn's going to wilt? No. Do I think they're going to rebound and play really well? Yes. Do I think they're going to cover? It's going to be difficult to cover. Arkansas is going to, they're going to make it tough at times. And I think you're either going to see Auburn by 10 or you're going to see a push. I don't think Auburn's going to blow them out. But I think you'll either see a push at 14 or you'll see a 10-point Auburn win. But I'm definitely taking Arkansas on the points. I don't think they'll win outright, but I am taking the points.
Okay, Mississippi State +2 at Kentucky. Kentucky favored over Ole Miss and Mississippi State. They blew the first game. Now they have the Bulldogs coming to Lexington and Kroger Field. I think the desperation lies with Kentucky right now, and they will basically make the plays necessary to win the game for the first time this season.
I think you're right. I think Kentucky really thought they were going to be better than this at this point this season. So they're definitely more desperate, I think, at the moment. And with the amount of the rushing and just as good as they've been up front, I'd be surprised if they let another team beat them by too many points. Although if anyone could do it, it'd probably be a Mike Leach offense.
At +2, the spread really doesn't favor anybody. It's really pretty much a pick'em game at this point. Honestly, I think all the pressure's on Kentucky right now. They're the ones that are feeling the pressure to win. I think Mississippi State is one of the things I really like about Mike Leach is that he keeps things loose, and his teams are able to go out there and play loose. Are they going to lose games they should? Yep. Are they going to win games they shouldn't? Yep. Are they going to make things interesting against bad opponents even in a win? Yep. They're going to be all over the place with results, and that's kind of what you get. But you're going to have a loose team that's going to play confidently, and I think that's going to carry over against a team that is desperate for a win, is pressing a little bit, and a team that really shoots itself in the foot quite frequently, talking about Kentucky. And I think things are going to kind of fall apart for the Wildcats, and they need to, in a sense, relax and play their game. But I think I'm taking Mississippi State.
All right. Around the SEC comes to a close. For Corey Burton and Jeb Beecham, I am Steve Willis. Tune in next week. Same back channel, same bat time. Take care.
You know it.